Have you ever noticed how people react when you stop giving them attention? It's almost like they can't handle it. But here's the truth. Ignoring someone can give you the upper hand. Sounds strange, right? But it works. So, why do people react the way they do when they're ignored? It all comes down to psychology. Humans are hardwired to crave attention. When they don't get it, they start to feel uneasy. Their sense of self-worth is tied to how others perceive them, and when you stop giving them that validation, it shakes them up. They begin to wonder if they still matter to you. Now, let's introduce some Stoic wisdom here. Think of the Stoics, people like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, who lived their lives by one key principle. You can't control how others behave, but you can always control your response. This simple idea can change the way you approach many situations, especially when it comes to interactions with others. When you stop reacting, when you stop giving them the energy they expect, you regain control of the situation. You don't need to respond to everything they do. Your peace of mind becomes more important than their attempts to get you worked up. Think about a situation in your own life. Maybe it was with a friend, someone who always needed your attention, or maybe it was at work with a colleague who seemed to demand validation. When you stopped responding or withdrew for a moment, their behavior shifted, didn't it? Suddenly, they were trying harder to get your reaction because without it, they felt lost. This is the power of detachment, a concept the Stoics valued deeply. But detachment doesn't mean being cold or unfeeling. It means that you choose where to invest your energy. When you stop seeking validation from others, you start living life according to your own values, not theirs. Before we get into how ignoring someone can actually work in your favor, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you stopped giving someone attention and it shifted the power in that relationship? How did they react? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And before we move forward with the details of how to master this technique, I'd really appreciate it if you like this video. It helps spread Stoic wisdom to more people. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Let's get started. Have you ever noticed how people act when you stop giving them attention? It's like they just can't seem to handle it. But why is that? The truth is, humans are wired to crave attention. We seek validation from others because it's part of how we understand our own worth. When that attention is taken away, we often find ourselves reacting in ways that may surprise us. So, why do people react when they're ignored? Let's break it down by first understanding why attention is so important. As social creatures, we've been conditioned to seek validation from the people around us. It's been this way for centuries, whether in our families, friendships, or in work environments. From childhood, we get positive reinforcement when we do something good, whether it's a parent's smile or a friend's compliment. Over time, that reinforcement becomes essential to our self-esteem. Attention and validation help us feel seen and remind us that we matter in this world. But here's the catch. When that attention is suddenly withdrawn, it can create a feeling of emptiness. You might not realize it right away, but the absence of recognition can throw off someone's internal balance. They start to wonder, what happened? Why aren't they paying attention to me? It's like a little voice inside their head says, am I not important anymore? The more you ignore them, the more they might start to feel unsettled because they're no longer receiving the same validation they once did. One big reason why people feel this way when they're ignored is something known as the scarcity effect. Simply put, when something becomes rare, we tend to value it more. Think about it. If you have constant access to something, you might not think too much of it. But when it's taken away, you suddenly notice its absence. This works the same way with attention. When you stop giving someone your time, they start to value it more. They wonder why they can't have it anymore, and that makes them want it even more. It's not that they don't appreciate your attention in the first place. It's simply that they start to perceive it as something valuable and scarce once it's no longer freely available. People will often go to great lengths to regain access to something they now view as precious. It's a natural reaction, almost like a reflex. When you're not responding, they might text more frequently, show up more often, or try to draw you back in. It's all because, in their mind, they now need to retrieve what they once took for granted. But there's something deeper at play. 2. The reaction to being ignored often has to do with ego. We all have an ego, a part of us that wants to be recognized and valued by others. When you withhold your attention, you're effectively challenging someone's sense of self-worth. It makes them question, why am I being ignored? And that can create a sense of discomfort or even anxiety. The reason why silence makes people so uncomfortable is that it often feels like a direct challenge to their ego. When you don't react to someone, they start wondering if something's wrong with them, or if they've done something to upset you. The silence they receive becomes a mirror reflecting their insecurities. Without feedback, they're left in the dark, uncertain of where they stand in your world. And this uncertainty is what triggers their reaction. They don't like feeling invisible or irrelevant. This is why social conditioning also plays a major role in how people react when ignored. We've all been conditioned through years of cultural and social experiences to associate attention with importance. From a young age, we're taught that being noticed, appreciated, or praised is a reflection of our value. This is especially true in environments like work, where validation from supervisors, colleagues, or clients is often tied to our perceived competence or self-worth. For example, think about a colleague who regularly seeks feedback or recognition for their work. What happens when you stop responding to their requests or giving them the feedback they expect? Suddenly, they begin to act differently, perhaps becoming more demanding or even defensive. Why? Because they've learned to associate your attention with their self-worth. Without it, they feel less secure about their place in the team or in the social hierarchy at work. Or consider a friendship, where one person has always been the one to initiate conversations and make plans. If you stop responding or pulling back, they may start texting you more or asking why things have changed. They're reacting because, without your attention, they begin to feel unimportant, and that's a hard pill to swallow. They don't want to lose the connection that they once had, so their reaction is a natural attempt to regain that lost attention. And then, of course, there are romantic relationships. The dynamics in a romantic relationship can be especially sensitive to attention withdrawal. If one person suddenly stops reaching out or becomes less responsive, the other person may experience feelings of rejection or anxiety. They might wonder, did I do something wrong? Why are they pulling away? Their ego feels threatened because the withdrawal of attention questions their place in the relationship. This can lead to various attempts to get the attention back, sometimes in healthy ways, other times not so much. Now that we've explored why people react when they're ignored, it's clear that it's not just about the absence of attention. It's about what that absence represents. It's about how people perceive their value, their connection to others, and their need for validation. Ignoring someone taps into these deep-seated psychological triggers. But what does this all mean for you? How can you use this knowledge to your advantage? When we talk about detachment, it's easy to think of it as being cold or indifferent, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Detachment, in the Stoic sense, isn't about pushing people away or becoming emotionally numb. It's about understanding what we can and cannot control and choosing to protect our peace. The Stoics believed that detachment is not just a tool for self-control. It's a powerful way to reclaim your emotional freedom. So let's take a deeper look at what detachment truly means and how it can change your life. In everyday life, Detachment means not being overly attached to outcomes, emotions, or the actions of others. It's about recognizing that your happiness or peace doesn't have to depend on anyone or anything external. We all face situations where we feel the urge to react, whether it's a harsh word from a friend, a frustrating situation at work, or even a disagreement in a relationship. Our first instinct might be to engage emotionally, to argue, or to make a statement. But detachment allows us to take a step back and choose our response, or even choose not to respond at all. Think about it this way. Emotions are powerful forces. They can motivate us to act, but if we allow them to control us, they can lead us to say or do things we regret. The Stoics believed that uncontrolled emotions can make us weak, and that's why learning to master them is so important. Stage 1. Confusion. Why aren't they responding? At first, when you stop responding or engaging with someone, the first reaction they often have is confusion. They don't understand why you've stopped reacting. They've gotten used to a certain dynamic where they have your attention, whether it's through texts, phone calls, or just general interaction. When you suddenly stop engaging, they wonder, what happened? Did I do something wrong? Why aren't they responding to me like they used to? For example, imagine a friend who's always been in touch, texting you all the time about everything from their day-to-day activities to their deeper personal thoughts. One day, you stop responding. At first, they might think it's just a small thing. Maybe you're busy or caught up with something. But after a while, confusion sets in. They start asking themselves, did I say something that upset them? Why is there no reply? This confusion can last for a while because the other person might believe that they've done something to deserve your attention, and now they can't figure out why it's been withdrawn. They don't yet realize that it's about your own choice to step back or maintain control over your own energy and time. Stage 2, testing you. Are they really ignoring me? After the confusion fades, the next stage is often a testing phase. People tend to try and find out if you're really ignoring them or if you've just been distracted for a while. This is when they might send multiple texts, make repeated calls, or gossip about you to mutual friends to get some kind of reaction. Let's say a colleague at work notices you've stopped responding to their emails or stopped hanging out during breaks. They start sending multiple follow-up messages, each one more persistent than the last. They might even joke about you being too busy or ghosting them to see if you'll bite. This is their way of testing your response. They're looking to see if you're still paying attention, hoping that you'll respond with the same level of engagement you once did. In relationships, this might look like one partner sending text after text, checking in on you, maybe even asking if you're mad at them. It's their way of probing, trying to see if your withdrawal is real or if they've just caught you at a busy moment. Stage 3. Manipulation, guilt-tripping or gaslighting. When testing doesn't work, some people move on to manipulation. This is when they might try to guilt-trip you, gaslight you, or play the victim to regain your attention. They're no longer looking for your response through reason or patience. They're trying to trigger your emotions so you'll react. For example, if a friend or family member feels ignored, they might say things like, I can't believe you're treating me this way, after all I've done for you, or you must be mad at me. Why else would you stop talking to me? They might even make accusations about your character, making you feel as though you're the one doing something wrong by pulling away. This is their way of turning the situation on its head, making you feel guilty for not responding. In relationships, manipulation might look like someone saying, I feel so lonely and rejected. I just don't understand why you won't talk to me anymore. In these cases, they're trying to make you feel responsible for their feelings, often without addressing their own behavior that might have caused you to pull back in the first place. They aim to turn the tables and make you feel obligated to respond, even if you don't want to. Stage 4. Desperation. The irrational attempts. If The guilt trip or manipulation doesn't work. Desperation often kicks in. This is when people may begin acting irrationally to get your attention. They might escalate their efforts, taking drastic actions or resorting to extreme behavior to try and force you to engage with them. This could look like a friend who, after repeated ignored texts, starts showing up unannounced at your home or calling repeatedly, becoming more frantic with each attempt. They might even send emotional outbursts, thinking that by showing you how upset or hurt they are, you'll respond out of sympathy or guilt. In more extreme situations, desperation can take on even more irrational forms, like a colleague who, after being ignored, might suddenly start spreading rumors about you in the office, hoping to spark some kind of conversation or attention. Their actions are no longer about understanding why you're withdrawing. They're about forcing you to respond to their emotional needs, whether you want to or not. Stage 5. Acceptance or revenge, respecting boundaries or resenting. You finally, after all the testing, manipulation, and desperation, people typically reach one of two conclusions: acceptance or revenge. If the person has the emotional maturity to accept the situation, they will eventually respect your boundary and stop trying to regain your attention. They might even come to realize that you've pulled back for a reason and that they need to respect that. This is a healthy response, although it can take time for some people to arrive at it. They'll recognize that detachment is not personal, and that your silence doesn't necessarily reflect a problem with them, but rather a need for your own space or peace. However, in some cases, people might respond with resentment. They may feel hurt or rejected and, instead of respecting your boundaries, they will act out. This could mean cutting off communication entirely, or it might mean seeking revenge, trying to make you feel the way they felt when you ignored them. This might look like a friend getting back at you by leaving you out of group activities, or a colleague undermining you at work. The truth is, how they respond tells you a lot about the relationship and their emotional maturity. Some people will understand, and some will try to manipulate the situation to their advantage. The key is recognizing your own power in these situations and knowing when it's time to stand firm in your detachment, regardless of their reaction. Have you ever noticed how people react when you stop giving them attention? It's fascinating to see how powerful silence can be. Ignoring someone doesn't just happen out of indifference. It's actually a calculated move that can give you a tremendous amount of power in a situation. But why is ignoring someone considered such a strong move? The truth is, non-reaction is a form of psychological control, and it gives you the ability to keep your peace, your boundaries, and your self-respect intact. When we react to something, we're essentially letting the situation dictate our emotions. The moment we engage, we give up a bit of our control. Whether it's an argument, a criticism, or an attempt to manipulate us, reacting means we're giving someone else the power over how we feel and how we act. Ignoring someone, on the other hand, is a way of maintaining control. When you choose not to react, you're taking your power back. Think about it. When you refuse to react, you're sending the message that you are unaffected by their attempts to get a rise out of you. It's not that you don't care, it's that you don't allow their behavior to disturb your inner peace. Non-reaction is strength, because you're not letting someone else control your emotional state. Instead, you maintain your composure, your boundaries, and your dignity. In essence, ignoring someone is an act of self-control. It's you saying, I don't need to react to feel validated. I don't need their attention to feel significant. That's the kind of psychological control that builds respect and demands it from others. When you can remain unaffected, even in a high-stakes situation, you become someone who is not easily manipulated or swayed by external forces. There's another layer to the power of ignoring someone. Attention is currency. People value what they can't have. When you stop giving someone attention, you're making it scarce, and naturally scarcity drives desire. Think about it. When something is readily available, it doesn't seem as valuable. But when it's withheld, people suddenly start to crave it more. The more you withdraw, the more they'll try to get a response from you. Let's say you're in a social situation where you've always been the one who initiates conversations or plans, but one day you pull back and stop engaging as much. What happens? The people around you, whether friends, co-workers, or even strangers, will start to notice. Suddenly they want your attention. You've become a scarce resource, and as we all know, scarcity increases value. They'll start texting more, trying to engage you more, or even doing whatever it takes to get back to the level of connection you once had. It's a natural response. They now see you as something they can't easily access, and that makes you more attractive and valuable in their eyes. This is why ignoring someone can be the ultimate power move. By choosing not to give your attention freely, you're teaching them the importance of earning your time and energy. You're reminding them that your attention isn't something that should be taken for granted. When you stop reacting and remain silent, you instantly create a sense of mystery and intrigue. People are drawn to what they don't understand. If you're always available, always responsive, and always engaging, there's no mystery about who you are or what you think. But when you stop responding in the usual way, you leave people wondering. Your silence makes them curious. Imagine a situation where you've been very communicative with someone, texting, calling, hanging out regularly. But one day, you stop responding to their texts or stop showing up to the same places. They'll likely start to wonder, what's going on? Why aren't they reaching out? Did I do something wrong? Suddenly, the normal dynamic is disrupted, and they'll be left to fill in the blanks. This mystery gives you psychological leverage. People begin to fill the silence with their own assumptions, which can work in your favor. They'll start to second-guess themselves, thinking, why are they ignoring me? Did I push them too far? The longer you maintain the silence, the more power you gain, because people naturally begin to respect what they can't easily access. Your absence makes them realize how valuable your presence is. Let's take a look at some real-life situations where ignoring someone has worked as a power move. Imagine you're in a relationship where your partner takes you for granted, not giving you the attention you deserve. You've communicated your feelings, but they continue to act the same way. One day, you simply stop responding the same way. Instead of constantly reaching out, you start to focus more on yourself and your needs. What happens? Your partner begins to notice your absence. They start reaching out more, asking questions, and wondering why things have changed. By withholding your attention, you force them to reflect on their behavior and realize the value you bring to the relationship. Think about a situation where a colleague constantly expects you to support them, answer their questions, or validate their ideas. After a while, you stop offering that support. Suddenly, they start feeling the lack of your presence and become more dependent on your input. By withholding your energy, you remind them that you control the terms of your involvement. And you won't just give your attention away freely. You've probably seen it happen in social settings too. You may notice a group of friends or acquaintances always seeking attention, talking over you, or ignoring your needs. The moment you stop playing along and choose to pull back, they begin to take notice. They'll start inviting you more, trying harder to get your input. Your absence in the group dynamic makes you more valuable than when you were constantly at the center of it all. So, why is ignoring someone such a powerful move? It's because your attention is one of your most valuable assets, and withholding it teaches others the importance of earning it. When you stop reacting and start choosing how and when to give your energy, you shift the dynamic in any relationship. But the question remains, how do you maintain this power? How do you avoid being pulled back into old patterns where people take your attention for granted? Let's explore that next. When we talk about ignoring someone, there's often a feeling of guilt that comes with it. We've been taught that ignoring someone is rude or inconsiderate, that it's a sign of being dismissive or unkind. But the truth is, ignoring someone doesn't make you a bad person. Sometimes it's necessary to set boundaries, protect your emotional well-being, or simply step back from a situation that's draining you. So why do we feel guilty for ignoring others? And how can we ignore without that nagging sense of guilt creeping in? The first thing to understand is why we feel guilty when we ignore someone. It's tied to the way we've been raised and socialized. From a young age, we're taught that ignoring someone is rude. Society teaches us that we should always be polite, communicative, and respectful, that we should always show others that we care. But when we pull back, when we choose not to respond, it can feel like we're breaking that unspoken rule. We worry that we're hurting someone's feelings, that we're being dismissive or unkind. We fear that the person will feel rejected or unimportant. But here's the thing, ignoring doesn't mean you don't care. It simply means you're protecting your own space. Ignoring someone is often an act of self-care, not rejection. Sometimes we feel drained or overwhelmed by certain people or situations, and choosing to ignore is a way of preserving our energy. It's not personal. It's about creating space for yourself. The guilt comes from the misconception that we have to always be available for others, that our worth is tied to constantly giving our attention away. But that's not true. Your energy and time are valuable, and it's okay to withhold them when necessary. Another reason we feel guilty for ignoring someone is because of our empathy. We don't want to hurt others or make them feel unimportant. We've been taught to be kind, to listen, and to respond when someone reaches out. But here's the thing. Empathy doesn't mean sacrificing your well-being. It's possible to care for someone without constantly giving them your attention. In fact, choosing to ignore sometimes is a sign of self-respect, not selfishness. It's okay to protect your peace, even if that means stepping away for a while. You can't pour from an empty cup. If you're constantly giving your energy to others without taking time for yourself, you'll eventually burn out. Ignoring someone when you need to is just another way of saying, I'm taking care of myself right now. Breaking the mindset that ignoring is rude or disrespectful is key to ignoring without guilt. You have to understand that boundaries are not the same as rudeness. Setting a boundary means you're drawing a line to protect your mental and emotional space. Rudeness is being intentionally hurtful or dismissive. Ignoring someone doesn't have to involve being cold or cruel. It can be done with kindness, respect, and compassion for both yourself and the other person. It's not about rejecting the person. It's about protecting your peace. You're not shutting them out because you don't care about them. You're just choosing not to engage in a way that drains you. When you begin to understand that ignoring doesn't mean rejecting, it becomes easier to step back without feeling guilty. You're setting a healthy boundary for yourself, and in doing so, you're showing respect to yourself and your own emotional needs. You have the right to decide how much energy you want to give, and it's okay to step away from someone who is demanding more of your attention than you can give. Now, let's talk about how to ignore effectively without feeling guilty. Ignoring doesn't have to mean completely shutting someone out or being mean. It's about setting your boundaries in a way that protects you. One technique is emotional disconnection. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you choose not to let someone's behavior affect you. If a colleague constantly seeks your validation or support, but it's starting to drain you, instead of reacting every time, you can detach emotionally. You don't have to respond to every request or demand for your time. You can remain neutral, calm, and focused on what you need to do without getting sucked into someone else's emotional needs. This detachment gives you the ability to ignore someone without getting pulled into a negative or draining cycle. Another way to ignore without feeling guilty is by giving minimal responses. If someone texts or calls and you're not in the mood to engage, you don't have to ignore them completely. You can respond briefly in a neutral tone. For example, instead of engaging in a long conversation, you can simply reply with, "I'm really busy right now, let's talk later." Or if someone asks for something and you don't feel like responding, a simple "I'll get back to you later" is enough. This keeps things respectful while also keeping your distance. Sometimes, body language plays a huge role in ignoring effectively. If you're around someone who is trying to get your attention but you don't want to engage, your body language can say it all. If you're showing defensive or frustrated body language, it might escalate the situation. But if you keep your posture relaxed, make minimal eye contact and remain calm, you're sending the message that you're not reacting to their behavior. It's a non-verbal way of saying, "I'm not going to engage right now, and that's okay." The more you practice maintaining non-reactive body language, the easier it becomes to ignore without feeling guilty. Finally, it's important to remember that detachment equals self-respect. Ignoring someone doesn't mean you're being unkind or mean. It means you are protecting your emotional health. You have every right to decide where to direct your energy. Setting boundaries and choosing when and how to engage is an essential part of self-care. By ignoring when necessary, you're taking control of your emotional space and showing that you value your own well-being. And in the end, that's the most respectful thing you can do for yourself and others. There are times when ignoring someone is the right move, especially when you're setting boundaries or protecting your peace. But the question is, when should you stop ignoring someone? Ignoring isn't always the best solution, and there are situations where stepping back and re-engaging is necessary. Sometimes it's important to assess whether your silence is still serving its purpose or if it's time to open the door again for communication. First, it's important to recognize when ignoring is no longer helping you or the situation. Ignoring someone indefinitely can cause unnecessary tension and, in some cases, even damage a relationship that might otherwise be worth saving. There are moments when holding on to silence starts to feel like you're carrying a weight that doesn't need to be there anymore. If the reason you've been ignoring someone has been resolved, or if time has passed and emotions have calmed, you might find that the space you needed has already been provided. Sometimes ignoring isn't the best option when someone is showing clear signs of change or regret. People grow and circumstances change, and it's only fair to give people the opportunity to show that they've genuinely learned from past mistakes. If the person you've been ignoring has made efforts to show that they understand what went wrong, that they've changed their behavior, or that they're willing to take responsibility for their actions, it might be time to reconsider. A genuine change in someone is worth acknowledging, and if they've shown growth, it's okay to meet them halfway. For example, let's say a friend who hurt you in the past has reached out with an apology, expressed genuine remorse, and shown consistent effort to make things right. Ignoring them now could feel like holding on to the past unnecessarily. If you feel that they've learned their lesson and you're open to the possibility of rebuilding trust, it's time to stop ignoring them and start the process of healing. That said, it's important to be clear about what kind of change you're seeing. Actions speak louder than words. If someone has apologized, but their actions haven't changed, then maybe it's not time to re-engage just yet. Be honest with yourself about whether their change is genuine or if they are simply trying to smooth things over without taking real responsibility. If they've truly changed, it's not just about saying the right words, it's about showing through their behavior that they are worthy of your time and attention once again. When it comes to re-engaging, it's important to do so in a way that allows you to maintain your power. If you've been ignoring someone for a reason, it's likely because you needed space, and that space has given you the ability to set the terms of engagement. When you decide to stop ignoring someone, don't just jump back into the relationship or conversation as if nothing ever happened. Take a moment to pause and consider how to approach the situation calmly without feeling pressured to act a certain way. Start with small steps to re-engage. Don't let them think that ignoring them was just a game you're playing. Instead, make it clear that you're choosing to re-engage on your own terms. It could be something simple, like a short message or a casual conversation, but make sure you're doing it because you feel ready, not because you feel obligated. It's essential to remember that detachment gave you power in the first place, so don't lose that power by rushing to fix things just for the sake of it. If the situation was particularly intense, like an argument or a deep betrayal, it's okay to ease back into the relationship rather than diving straight into it. This gradual re-engagement allows you to feel comfortable, and it also gives the other person a chance to prove their sincerity. Rebuilding trust takes time, and there's no need to rush it. Ultimately, the decision to stop ignoring someone comes down to a feeling of clarity and readiness. If someone has truly changed and you feel emotionally safe doing so, it might be time to let go of the silence. But always remember that you don't have to re-engage just because others expect it or because you feel guilty. You should only re-engage when it feels right for you and when you're confident that your peace and boundaries will still be respected. Moving forward, in some cases, you may find that stopping the silence is not about fully reopening the relationship, but instead just shifting to a more neutral stance. You might not return to the same level of closeness as before, but you can let go of the emotional weight of ignoring them. It's about finding balance, moving forward without holding on to past hurts, but also protecting your own peace. The key is to approach the situation with wisdom and balance. Take your time to assess whether it's the right moment and trust your instincts. Re-engaging doesn't mean you're weak or that you're giving up your boundaries. It means you've done the work to recognize growth, either in yourself or in the other person, and you're choosing to move forward on your terms and with confidence. Practical Stoic exercises to build detachment. Building detachment can be a powerful tool for anyone looking to gain emotional clarity and self-control. The Stoics had several exercises that helped them detach from the noise of life, teaching them how to focus on what truly mattered. These practices are timeless and incredibly effective at fostering inner peace. Let's talk about a few of these exercises and how you can apply them in your own life to develop detachment. One of the core practices that Stoics use to detach from their immediate emotional reactions is called the view from above. It's essentially about seeing life from a higher perspective, almost as though you were a bird flying high above the world, observing everything from a distance. When you get caught up in the details of life, in every little argument or frustration, it can feel like those things are the center of your world. But when you take a step back and look at things from a broader viewpoint, you begin to see that the things you're stressed about may not matter as much in the grand scheme of things. This exercise is meant to help you detach from the small, immediate problems and see them from a higher perspective. Instead of reacting impulsively, you can pause, step back, and think about whether the issue is truly worth your time and energy. When you learn to take this big picture view, it becomes easier to detach from your emotions and gain a clearer, calmer response to the challenges life throws your way. Another exercise that the Stoics used is journaling Stoic reflections. It's simple, but incredibly effective. The idea behind it is that writing down your thoughts and emotions helps you process them before you react. Many times, we find ourselves in situations where we're upset or angry, and before we even have a chance to think, we react. But when you take a moment to journal your feelings first, you slow down the process and gain clarity on what's really going on. In the journal, you might ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What is the source of my anger or frustration? Is this something I can control? By putting your thoughts on paper, you detach from the immediate emotional response and give yourself the space to reflect. This practice helps you understand your emotions better and gives you the opportunity to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Another essential practice for detachment is meditation on control. The Stoics believed in focusing only on what is within your control. Life is full of things we can't change, other people's actions, the weather, or even the opinions of others. But we can always control how we respond to these situations. The idea behind this meditation is to bring your focus back to what you can actually influence: your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions. When you're faced with a challenging situation, instead of getting caught up in everything that's out of your control, try to center yourself on what you can do in the moment. This helps you detach from the feeling of helplessness and regain power over your emotions and reactions. By training yourself to only focus on what you can control, you begin to let go of unnecessary stress and frustration, making it easier to stay calm and collected no matter what happens around you. Finally, one of the most powerful exercises for building detachment is the 24-hour silence challenge. The Stoics didn't just teach us to react less. They also encouraged practicing silence to build emotional resilience. The idea behind this challenge is to spend an entire day in silence, refraining from reacting to anything, whether it's responding to others, reacting to frustrations, or giving in to emotional impulses. It's a way to train your mind to become more disciplined and mindful of your reactions. It's not about being mute or withdrawing from the world. It's about practicing mindful silence, choosing not to react automatically to whatever comes your way. By doing this, you gain better control over your emotions and reactions. Over time, you'll find that you become less triggered by external situations and more able to maintain peace even when things aren't going your way. As you practice these Stoic exercises, I want to leave you with a challenge. Try ignoring negativity for 48 hours. That might sound simple, but it's harder than you think. During these 48 hours, when you're faced with negative thoughts, emotions, or situations, try to simply observe them without reacting. Let the negativity pass without letting it affect you. See what happens when you stop engaging with negativity and choose to remain calm and detached. You might be surprised by how much lighter and more peaceful you feel. Detachment doesn't mean being cold or indifferent to others. It means choosing your responses, maintaining your peace, and not letting external factors control your inner world. By practicing these exercises, you'll find that you can detach from your emotions more easily, respond with more clarity, and live with greater peace. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes to stay calm and collected in the face of life's challenges. As we wrap up, it's important to remember just how powerful detachment can be. Ignoring someone might sound harsh to some, but in reality, it's a tool for preserving your inner peace and maintaining your emotional strength. Detachment is about choosing not to let the external world control how you feel. It's not about being cold or indifferent. It's about understanding that your emotions are yours to control, not something that should be manipulated by others. The power of ignoring lies in the fact that it allows you to reclaim your energy. Every time we react to something, whether it's a person's words, actions, or behaviors, we're giving away a part of our emotional energy. When we stop reacting, we stop losing pieces of ourselves. By choosing not to engage, we decide to focus on what truly matters to us. It's a way of protecting your peace and making sure that your emotional state isn't at the mercy of someone else's behavior. In many ways, ignoring someone is a reflection of self-control. It's you saying, "I choose how I feel and I choose peace." You are not giving them the power to decide your emotional reaction. It's also a reminder that we don't need others to validate us or make us feel important. When you let go of the need for external validation, you begin to realize that you're perfectly capable of being at peace with yourself, regardless of what's happening around you. That's what the Stoics taught us. Self-control and personal peace are within our grasp. Life will always throw challenges our way, but when we understand that we can choose our responses, we stop being slaves to those challenges. Detachment gives you the power to stay grounded in your own values and emotions, no matter what's going on externally. Have you ever ignored someone and seen their reaction change? Maybe it was a friend or a colleague who stopped getting the attention they expected from you. Did they react with frustration, desperation, or even respect your space? It's fascinating to observe how people shift when they realize they no longer have control over your emotions. Share your experience in the comments below, and let's talk about how detachment has worked for you in different situations. It's always enlightening to hear how others have applied Stoic principles to their lives. And finally, if you found this video helpful, I encourage you to subscribe for more Stoic wisdom. Stoicism has so much to offer when it comes to understanding how to navigate life's ups and downs with grace, and we'll continue to dive deeper into these timeless lessons. Remember, detachment is not about disengaging from the world. It's about choosing where to direct your energy and ensuring that you stay true to yourself no matter what life throws at you. Stay peaceful, stay in control, and keep practicing the art of detachment.